For years, my existence was a shadow, defined by the radiant light of my twin sister, Isabella. Born 3 minutes before her, I was, in our family's eyes, an afterthought, a secondary note in a symphony composed for one. My name is the Valerie Morgan, and I was the daughter my parents, Nancy and Douglas, forgot they had. Growing up in a sleek Denver condo that seemed more like a museum than a home, I learned early that in our world, fairness was a currency I could not earn. Isabella was the star, a perfect, polished reflection of my mother's ambition and my father's detached pride. I was simply a variable. The defining moment of this bitter truth arrived after college graduation. We had both earned our degrees. Isabella, a theater major from the local university, and I, a computer science major who had clawed her way to a full-ride scholarship at a prestigious institute of technology in Cambridge. But did my parents care? No. Their congratulations came in the form of a 5-day Miami trip, a grand celebration for Isabella's achievement. 3 plane tickets were booked, and not a single one bore my name, Valerie. My mother said, her voice a practiced, sterile calm, "You're so independent. You'll be fine staying home." That word, independent, felt like a dagger. It was not a compliment, it was a dismissal. It was their excuse for their neglect. As Isabella posted sun-drenched selfies, I stood alone in my room, clutching a diploma that felt like a certificate of invisibility. But that wasn't the worst of it. The true gut punch came later that night. I was downstairs for a glass of water when I overheard my mother's hushed whisper to my father in the den. "Douglas," she sighed, a note of quiet longing in her voice. "If we only had Isabella, life would be so much easier." My heart stopped. I was not just invisible. I was an unwanted burden, a problem they wished they could make disappear. It was a wound that ran so deep it would never fully heal. It was in that moment, in the solemn darkness of a silent home, that I swore a solemn oath to myself I would make them see me. Not as the spare twin, not as the independent daughter who could handle it, but as a force they could no longer ignore. Have you ever felt so invisible in your own family that you had to create your own light? Tell me your story in the comments below. Growing up, the chasm between Isabella and I was not subtle, it was a gaping wound. By the time we were 5, the lines were irrevocably drawn. My mother, a brilliant and beautiful marketing executive, was a connoisseur of performance. And in her theatrical world, Isabella was the prima ballerina. My mother had a knack for making me feel like an afterthought without ever raising her voice. At the mall, she would watch with a sparkle in her eye as Isabella pointed to a sparkly pink designer dress, which was in the cart before a blink, a $200 extravagance with no questions asked. I, meanwhile, would stand by, clutching a clearance rack t-shirt, hoping for a sliver of her attention. "Valerie, we can't afford extras," she would say, and I would nod, the word, extras, a silent curse on my worth. This pattern extended to every facet of our lives. When we were 6, my mother enrolled Isabella in private ballet lessons, a 3-night-a-week commitment that cost $500 a month. She would post videos of Isabella's pirouettes on her Instagram, captioning them, "My little ballerina." While I would watch from the sidelines, my own dreams gathering dust. I asked once if I could attend a coding camp, a passion I had discovered on my father's old laptop. But my mother's reply was quick and final, "Not now, Valerie. It's too expensive." A week later, she paid for Isabella's new, custom-made ballet shoes, shipped from New York, a $1,000 pair I could never dream of owning. I learned to stop asking after that. Instead, I taught myself to code, watching Python tutorials late into the night while my sister practiced her spins. My father, a man more comfortable with algorithms than emotions, was no help either. The one time I showed him a simple game I had built, his eyes flicked to Isabella, who had just walked in with a new ballot trophy. "That's great, Valerie," he mumbled, his voice devoid of warmth, before turning to her. "Isabella, tell me about your competition." I stood there, my laptop screen dimming, a hollow ache in my chest. As we grew, the gap between us widened. On her 12th birthday, Isabella received a new $1,000 iPhone, the top of the line rose gold model. My gift was a refurbished flip phone that barely held a charge. My mother's explanation a familiar sting, "It's more practical for you." My solace was in my own achievements. In middle school, I joined the math club, finding a fierce comfort in the logic of numbers. When I scored a 95 on a challenging exam, I rushed home, my heart swelling with hope, only to find my mother on the phone, her voice a proud, loud broadcast about Isabella's lead role in a school play. My test paper lay on the counter, a silent testament to her indifference. I won first place at the science fair for a robot I had built, a triumph I naively believed would finally get their attention. But when I got home, my mother was already bragging on the phone about Isabella's play, her voice echoing through the door. She's a natural. My trophy sat on my desk, gathering dust, while Isabella's play received a full Instagram album, complete with heart emojis, and a lavish family dinner. The final betrayal, the one that broke my heart and forged my resolve, came in high school. I had spent countless nights building a machine, learning project for an urban planning competition, a passion that had secured me a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious institute of technology. But I didn't tell my parents. I knew they would be too busy driving Isabella to her next rehearsal or helping her practice for her college auditions. One night, I snuck into my mother's home office, a quiet rebellion against her constant dismissal. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I found it, a buried email thread from my aunt, Heather, my mother's estranged younger sister. It read, "Nancy, you are blind to how you treat Valerie. It's unfair." My mother's reply was icy, a chilling reflection of her indifference. "Stay out of my family, Heather. You don't get it." My hands trembled as I read the words. My aunt had seen my pain, and for telling the truth, my mother had cut her out of her life. I had never met Aunt Heather, but in that moment, I knew I had to find her. That email was a lifeline, a way out of the suffocating lie that I was nothing. I copied her address, my hands shaking with a new kind of purpose. I wasn't just overlooked, I was unwanted. But I would no longer be a shadow. Finding Aunt Heather's email changed everything. That weekend, while my mother and sister were off at another rehearsal, I took a bus to Boulder, a small, vibrant city an hour from Denver. My hands shook as I clutched the scrap of paper with Aunt Heather's address, my heart pounding with a strange mix of nerves and hope. What if she didn't care? What if she was just like my mother? I pushed those fears aside and knocked on the door of a small, cozy house with a tidy front yard. A woman in her late 30s answered, her short brown hair framing warm, understanding eyes. She had a coding textbook under her arm. "You must be Valerie," she said, her voice soft but certain, as if she had been expecting me all along. I nodded, my throat tight, and she pulled me into a hug so warm it felt as though she were holding on to a lost piece of herself. Inside, her house was nothing like our cold, polished condo. Bookshelves overflowed with coding manuals and science fiction novels. A laptop hummed on her kitchen table, next to a steaming coffee mug. She sat me down, poured me tea, and asked me about my life. Not just about school, but about me, the real me. I spilled everything: my mother's favoritism, my father's indifference, the countless chores I did so Isabella could chase her dreams. "Nancy was always like that," Aunt Heather said, her voice heavy with regret. "When we were kids, she needed to be the star. I called her out for how she treated you, and she cut me off, hasn't spoken to me in years." I sat there, my tea cooling, realizing my mother hadn't just erased me, she had erased anyone who dared to challenge her worldview. Aunt Heather didn't just listen, she became my mentor. A freelance programmer for startups, she saw a potential in me that my parents never did. "You've got a real gift," she said, scrolling through my weather app on her laptop. She started teaching me advanced coding, Python frameworks, and machine learning tools I had only read about online. We spent weekends in her home office, debugging code and laughing over my rookie mistakes. For the first time, someone believed in me without me having to beg for it. One afternoon, after we had finished a tough algorithm, Aunt Heather handed me a small box. Inside was a key fob with a Tesla logo. "It's a Model 3, she said, pointing to a sleek white car outside. "For you, Valerie. For your own path." My eyes stung, not from pain, but from the trust she had in me. A trust my parents never gave me. I kept the Tesla at Aunt Heather's, not ready to bring it home, and took apart, Time job at a tech library near school. It gave me a small income and a sense of independence I had never felt before. My AI project began to get noticed. One tech blog called it groundbreaking, and it amassed thousands of downloads. My coding teacher, Mr. Simmons, pulled me aside after class. "Valerie, you're going places," he said, his voice firm. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." At home, however, it was still all about Isabella. My mother booked her another drama coach for $1,000, while my name in a tech magazine went unnoticed. My father stayed glued to his laptop, muttering about work. Their silence was deafening, but it no longer broke me. Aunt Heather's lessons, the Tesla key, the scholarship, they were my strength. Every trip to Boulder made me feel bigger, stronger. Aunt Heather's house was my safe haven, a place where I could be myself without fighting for it. "You're not just surviving, Valerie," she said one evening, her eyes locked on mine. "You're creating something they can't touch." I held on to those words, letting them drown out my mother's dismissals and Isabella's smug smirks. I was not the spare twin anymore. I was someone with a future, and I was ready to make them see it on my terms. Graduation day was a whirlwind of cheers and navy blue gowns. I stood on the stage clutching my diploma, announced as valedictorian, class of 2025. The crowd's cheers echoed, but my eyes were fixed on the empty family seats. My parents and Isabella were in Miami, throwing a 5-day celebration for her graduation. "Valerie, you'll be fine," my mother had said over the phone, her tone sharp. "This is Isabella's moment." I had just secured a full-ride scholarship to MIT, but no one at home cared enough to notice. After graduation, I threw myself into preparing for my new life. I practiced for a virtual panel with tech recruiters, sending my parents the livestream link. They didn't watch. Isabella had a drama showcase that evening, and my mother was there, recording every line. My coding teacher messaged me afterward. "You were phenomenal, Valerie," he wrote. But at home, it was as if I didn't exist. The day they returned from Miami, I was taping up my last box in the condo. Their SUV rolled into the driveway, and my parents and Isabella stepped out, tanned and laughing. Isabella strutted in a designer sundress, her hair styled like a starlet. My mother's eyes caught the Tesla Model 3 parked outside, a gift from Aunt Heather I hadn't mentioned. "Whose car is that?" she asked, her tone cutting the air. I twirled the key fob, my voice steady. "Mine," I said. "Aunt Heather gave it to me for graduation." The room froze. My mother's jaw clenched, her phone already in her hand. My father's eyes widened, and Isabella let out a sharp, jealous scoff. My mother dialed Aunt Heather on speaker. "Heather, it's Nancy," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "A $40,000 Tesla. Are you serious?" Aunt Heather's voice came through, calm and unyielding. "Nancy, I gave it to someone who's earned it. Valerie deserves it." My mother's face flushed red. "Isabella needs a car, too. She's got college auditions." I nearly laughed. Isabella, fresh off a Miami trip draped in designer gear, needed a car. Aunt Heather didn't flinch. "You've given Isabella everything, Nancy. Valerie's been invisible to you for years." The call ended abruptly, my mother's hand shaking. My father stepped forward, his voice low. "Valerie, that car is too much," he said. "Isabella could use it. It's only fair." I stared at him, my pulse racing, but my resolve was ironclad. "I'm keeping it," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "I've earned it." My mother's eyes flashed. "Don't be selfish," she snapped. "We're a family. You need to support Isabella." I reached into my bag, pulling out an envelope. "This is my MIT scholarship," I said, sliding it across the table. "Full ride. Tuition, housing, everything. I leave next week." Their mouths opened, no words coming out. Isabella's phone slipped from her hand, her smug smirk vanishing. I wasn't done. I had spent hours drafting a LinkedIn post, pouring out years of truth. I hit post on my phone, my hand steady. "Check your feeds," I said, locking eyes with my mother. "It's all there. How you chose Isabella over me every single time." The post went live, detailing the ignored scholarships, the Tesla from Aunt Heather, the years of being the spare twin. Within hours, it exploded. Classmates, teachers, even my mother's coworkers commented, calling out her bias. My mother's phone buzzed with notifications, her face paling as she read the backlash. "Valerie, how could you do this?" she whispered, her voice cracking. My father tried to speak, his tone softer now. "Valerie, we didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "We thought Isabella needed us more." I shook my head, my voice firm. "You didn't think about me at all." I grabbed my bag, the Tesla key in my pocket, and headed for the door. Isabella called out, her voice sharp. "You're just leaving. You think you're better than us now?" I turned, meeting her eyes. "No," I said. "I just know I don't need you to see me." I stepped outside, the door closing behind me, their suitcases still in the driveway. I wasn't turning back. I was already on my way to a life I had built for myself. I left Denver on a crisp August morning, the Tesla's soft hum carrying me toward Boston. Aunt Heather followed in her old hatchback, her steady presence in my rearview mirror a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. The highway stretched ahead, each mile pulling me away from the condo, where I had been invisible toward a future I had forged on my own. MIT's campus buzzed with life, a place where coders were rock stars and ideas sparked like wildfire. I settled into my dorm, a small room with a desk stacked with textbooks, and for the first time I felt a rush of profound freedom. I wasn't Isabella's shadow anymore. I was Valerie, ready to carve my own path. MIT classes were a whirlwind, a relentless mix of algorithms and late-night coding sessions. I dove in, debugging neural networks alongside classmates who saw me for my work, not my past. One of them, Cassandra, a computer science major from Seattle, became my closest ally. We'd grab coffee between lectures, swapping ideas over steaming mugs. With her, I didn't have to fight for space, I just belonged. My LinkedIn post had gone viral, reaching thousands of people. My coding teacher, Mr. Simmons, shared it, adding, "Valerie's always been exceptional. This proves it." The post hit my mother's professional circle, her clients, her colleagues, even her boss, sparking whispers that reached her office. Cassandra kept me updated. "Your mom's getting called out hard," she said. I didn't revel in it, but I felt a quiet sense of justice that the truth was out, no longer trapped in my notebook. A month into MIT, my phone pinged with a text from my mother. "Valerie, can we talk?" It read, her tone softer than I had ever known. "We're sorry we didn't see how much we hurt you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope for a family that valued me, but then I heard her voice again. "If we only had Isabella," and I saw the years of ignored apps and empty seats. I set the phone down, no response. I wasn't bitter, just done chasing their love. I had Aunt Heather, Cassandra, and a future I had forged myself. I took a part-time gig at a Boston tech startup, and the work felt right. One evening, Cassandra dragged me to a campus hackathon. We teamed up, built an app for real-time traffic analytics, and took first place, earning a pitch to investors. "Rockstar as always," Cassandra said, nudging me. I grinned, the weight of Denver fading with every new step. Aunt Heather called every week, her voice a steady anchor. "You're killing it," she said after I told her about the hackathon. "I always knew you would." I clutched the phone, my eyes stinging not from pain, but from finally being seen. 2 months later, my mother texted again. "Valerie, we miss you," she wrote. "Isabella's struggling in college. She could use your help. We're still family, right?" I read it, my heart calm. Isabella struggling. Maybe, but I had carried her weight for years, and I was done. I didn't reply. I wasn't running from them, I was running toward something bigger. My app downloads soared. The startup offered me a full-time role after graduation, leading their AI team. I said yes, no hesitation. Boston became more than a city, it was my home. I'd walk through campus, my backpack heavy with code and ambition, feeling the profound freedom of being enough. Cassandra and I hit late night diners, splitting fries and sketching out our next project. One night, under the neon glow of a diner sign, she asked, "Do you ever think about going back?" I shook my head. "I'm already where I belong," I said. I had spent years chasing a spotlight that wasn't mine, but now I had my own. Bright, unapologetic, and built line by line. Choosing myself was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was worth it. I didn't need my mother's apologies or my sister's approval to know my worth. I found it in my aunt's trust, my friend's companionship, and the code I wrote. Family isn't just where you start, it's where you're seen. It's where you're enough. And I was finally home. This is a story of a young woman who found her worth not in her family's approval, but in her own resilience. It is a powerful reminder that you have the right to choose your own path, to set boundaries, and to find a true family that sees and values you. Have you ever had to choose yourself over a family that didn't see you? I'd love to hear your stories of finding strength and a new sense of belonging in the comments below.